What's up, freaks? This is just me, and today we're gonna be ranking the 8 mandatory poses, including the most muscular, of the Frankenstein Paul Dillett from worst to best. And we're gonna be considering the poses throughout the bodybuilder's whole career. That means consistency matters. A pose that was effective for a brief period, but for the most part it didn't look nearly as good, isn't gonna get a pass in this video as one of the strongest, because that wouldn't be fair. Okay, with that out of the way, let me introduce today's bodybuilder. Jurassic Paul Dillett was a massive competitor from the stacked 1990s lineups. His placings weren't cream of the crop. His best placing at the O, for instance, was 4th, but that can be contributed to Paul's inability to pose properly more than his actual physique. He had a spectacular body, a mass monster with a small waist, no stomach distension, and superlative aesthetics. So that about does it for the preamble, so let's start the countdown. First, as Paul Dillett's worst mandatory position, we got the back lat spread. In this pose, you can immediately see how non-symmetrical Paul's lats are, at least in the two photos on the outer sides of the screen. He could never flare that right one out to save his life because of some problems he had with his back makeup. That makes the pose look just wrong, which is too bad because the one lad he's flaring does look pretty good. But this way it looks as if someone photoshopped quite a skimpy back onto one of the best legs from the rear. Look at that, they have an impressive level of mass and great development, especially in the calves, as well as good definition. So great legs, but the pose looks super imbalanced and it's not good at all, with all due respect to the Frankenstein. And in later years, Paul actually went on to be able to pose his back a lot better. You can see that in action in the middle pic. But at this point, his development was nowhere near his prime years, of course, so nothing doing. And next, in 7th, comes in the rear double biceps. You can immediately see that the execution in this pose is horrible. Retracting the scapulars together like Paul's doing takes away from his lat width and makes the pose look incredibly awkward, with all the respect once again. Jurassic Paul's got a teeny tiny waist, great huge arms, and his lower body is top notch as I mentioned, but it just doesn't look great at all because his somewhat shredded glutes and massive calves, the rear delts, if you look up top, just can't make up for the butchered execution, right? The gargantuan rear delts actually don't do Paul any favor because they make his back look even smaller than it already appeared due to the way he's hitting it. It's really a pity because although the Frankenstein's back wasn't the strongest anyway, as we saw in the previous post, it still looked 100 times better than these pics might have you believe. And next comes in the front lat spread. And I'm telling you, seeing this pose on Paul is incredibly painful because of how much potential he's got. However, you can see the terrific imbalance he's got going on, with one side of his body looking completely different than the opposite side once again. It's so unfortunate, but I'm sure he just wasn't able to execute the mandatory in the more symmetrical way, otherwise he would have done it, right? In the pic on the left hand side, notice that the execution is a lot better, with the delts being roughly the same height, but each of the wings still looks different somehow. Either way, look at Paul's left side. He looks very, very impressive. Look at the big arm and shoulder, the lat that appears so bulbous and developed, and the thick chest. And also on both sides symmetrically this time, he's got a sharp midsection, small waistline, and superlative wheels. I dare say if both half of his body looked like the one on Paul's left, so your right hand side, he surely would have had a top 8 worthy of all time lat spread pose. Unfortunately, that wasn't meant to be, and the asymmetry is so glaring I can't award this pose a higher placing. And in fifth lands the side triceps. Paul had a great horseshoe. It's super beefy and well separated from the rest of his arm. It actually looks quite retarded. Look how huge it appears. It's incredible. The large delt and full pecs also look exceptional, as well as the lower section, which looks muscle bound and also very cut. The reason why this pose isn't higher up is probably obvious. He's not posing properly once again. This way of hitting the pose doesn't offer anything else than simply making the bodybuilder in question look too closed off and sort of small up top, so he definitely could have executed much better. So, and I present to you the fourth place pose, the ab and thigh pose. Paul was one of the best mass monsters to ever do it. He also looked aesthetic doing it with his awesome calves, not very separated but huge quadriceps, tiny waist, eye-pleasing abs, and flaring big lats. He didn't look far from perfect in the ab and thigh, really. I don't think you can deny he looks more streamlined than any other guy of his size you've ever seen. His ab makeup is picture perfect with a well developed six pack, and his waist is super trim and narrow. He's got a glorious V taper once again, and I would also wager to say his quads were not far from the best of the 90s. So, overall, this pose, he's also hitting it pretty well, so a great pose for Paul Dillett. And in third place is his most muscular shot, which during the 90s wasn't mandatory, but it doesn't really matter. They still did it even then. Now, third place for most muscular might seem a bit too low, but reserve criticism for the end of the video. There's no question Jurassic Paul looks absolutely freaky in this pose. Look at his weirdly shaped traps that are not particularly eye-pleasing, but they're unique and so recognizable. Look at his cannonball delts that go along with the traps, and also the strided, thick, vascular chest and arms, which look amazing from this angle, with the big and long biceps and triceps. And to top all of that off, look, he's even got a trim stomach and huge wheels. It really needs no explanation as to why I gave this pose a high placing. It just screams mass monster. The reason why I have two other poses ahead is because I believe that Paul hit those two poses just a bit better and more effectively than this one. Take a look, for example, at this front double biceps. Are you kidding me? This is GOAT material. Look at the crazy roundness of the arms. The biceps and triceps looks out of this world good. The arms are absolutely huge, even in proportion with Paul's oversized, I guess, physique. He's got an amazing standout V-taper with his lats flaring out of his tiny waistline. That's just premium genetics in the midsection overall. Look at the symmetrical, perfect six-pack of his. Great aesthetics, I gotta say. Even though Paul's wings are uneven, you don't really notice it because of the way he's smartly tilting a bit to the side. And when we go downstairs, the quads, need I say, they look killer, X-frame. And not even the calves are missing. This guy's got everything he needs to excel in this one mandatory, like he was made for it. However, with that load of praising out of the way, I think this side chest suits the Frankenstein incredibly, possibly even a little better in my opinion. He looks more than impressive with his great traps, jumbo-sized, standout delts, thickly developed backs, big and shredded arms, cinched in midsection and waist, and world-class legs. Take note once again of the quads in particular. He hits this pose in a way that isn't necessarily ideal, in my opinion, but it's good enough to get the job done. Paul certainly hits it better than the most muscular, if you ask me. The front double he hits even more effectively, but I found the side chest is truly the pose which thoracic balls most proves why he's been given that nickname in. He looks monstrously massive and diced in this pose. He's just got unbeatable freak factor. But this order is no way set in stone, so be sure to let me know down in the comment section below what you thought about this video and my ranking, and also give us your own ranking of Paul Dillett's mandatories. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to watch some Paul Dillett videos and also like and subscribe. Enjoy the rest of your day.